Hello, I'm Januta Ribinskas, and I'm a corporate performance coach assisting in human performance and corporate change. And on this session, we'll be talking about the importance of wellness and some research and how important it is to apply wellness to basically gain performance for your staff in the workplace. So people are happy, they're functioning, and there's less sickness, stress, more wellness and productivity and collaboration as an outcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we have a remarkable guest joining us. Now, Januta, how are you doing today?
I'm really well, thank you. Amazing, actually.
Absolutely.
I'm excited to be here. So thank you for inviting me, Prosper.
Januta, the pleasure is all mine. After I realized and discovered that you actually made Uluru shake, I thought it would be apropos to have you on this episode right now, where we're talking about corporate wellness and the discovery, of the Oxford University about all these wellness programs. Now, for those that are tuning in for the very first time, welcome to the Online Prosperity Show. This is a show where we bring in experts like Januta who know a thing or two about wellness. Now, for those that are meeting Januta for the very first time, where have you been? Well, I will get you out of your misery. She's a corporate performance improvement coach, author, and thought leader with over 30 years of experience in human performance, health, and well-being, and also HR consulting fields. Now, she's the founder of Executive Wellbeing Propriety Limited and the creator of transformative programs like the Knowing Flow, which is a Vinyasa yoga series and mindful retreats. Now, Januta, I could go on and on talking about your accolades, but it sort of defeats the whole purpose of having an expert like yourself on the show. Could you maybe start by sharing with our viewers what it is that you do as a corporate performance improvement coach and how you actually got into this field?
Well, I've been on my pathway for a long time. I started when I was about 17, and being an intuitive person, I started studying Eastern philosophies and practices and developed skills in that area. And during my 20s, I went through a challenging time, which had me look a bit deeper. And at that stage, emotionally, I was challenged, and I thought there must be something more to feeling that way. So I've headed on that pathway, and over the years, developed a corporate career in HR. I was in HR and at senior level for about 15 years, and I've been in corporate for 30 years. And I paralleled my wellness studies alongside my corporate career, and I was coaching individuals about their career and pathways when I was in the HR field. And then I've been able to parallel, as I mentioned, because I've got extensive experience and I've studied a lot of evidence science-based methodologies with some amazing people, which has given me the knowledge to be able to talk about the body-mind connection and a holistic approach to corporate. So within the corporate market, I coach individuals at leadership roles. It can be a whole range of positions if they're experiencing burnout, stress, they're overwhelmed, they haven't got their life balance happening. But I also look into their career and what's happening within their role and help them adjust it so that they can be more time effective, more creative, so that they can start to balance their life and sometimes, even delegate more or just look at their own personal, how they're approaching the situation. And that's what I always share with people about going within, being responsible for your own actions and make the changes because often people blame other people, the external world, for everything. And when you become empowered and get to know yourself from the inside out, you become more present and you can start to notice how you're reacting to circumstances in life and what's triggering you. And that's the area that you can change. And knowing that and owning your emotions, your thoughts, and knowing that that area you can always shape. But it does take time and coaching. And that's why I put together a whole toolkit of evidence-based concepts as well as techniques. And then I run corporate workshops. So I'll work with the team and we'll do goal setting and a creative process I've called integrative mapping, which works with this process works with the whole brain, left side, right side, and you're working with the creative aspect. So you're stimulating your creativity and a solutions-orientated mind. You become calmer, more energy, more focus, and it just eliminates the burnout. Usually you just end up a bit tired. So I'm grateful for my career. You know, I've been around for a long time and I've seen the changes too in the corporate world, where when I started, wellness was just a nice thing to do. And through the 90s, now that we're in the knowledge cycle, and where the knowledge and information cycle, there's a lot more education around. And that's where I'm able to give my point of view, because I've, you know, I do the research and acknowledge other people's evidence, but I've worked with thousands of people over the years, so, and myself, so I have that evidence to work with as well. So I've had the feedback of amazing change when I work, you know, with organisations and from the top, and then it cascades down. So it's either building a toxic culture or a coherent, collaborative one where people are well rather than burning out.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for, walking us through that journey in and of itself. Now, you did mention when you started, that was, at a time when you would have been around 17 or, in your early 20s or that sort of, tender age. Did you have any sort of inspiration, from maybe the outside world or where you were learning from? Because you were learning things that were not existing at that particular time, the Eastern philosophies.
Yeah.
How did you stumble onto that?
I was just naturally intuitive. And interesting enough, when I was about 5, I just had this deep realizations. I remember standing at school going, I'm me, and that's the world, and it wasn't a language of that's the universe, but I just sensed there was something more, which the day-to-day get up, go to work, hard slog, it just didn't cut it with me. And I just thought there must be other things. And that's when, I just came across other concepts and started looking into them. And yoga, I saw the yoga lady on telly and she just inspired me. So when I got to about 17, I was actually a competitive swimmer and gymnast as a kid. So I was very goal focused, and I used to swim at the national championship level, and I'd be top 3 my age and top 2 in state performance, and I do national championships. So I came from that real sporting, achieving background, but yoga just inspired me, and I love dance. And that's when I was about 17, and I just knew from the 5-year-old experience that I wanted to start yoga, and I just took it from there. And I've always been mainstream, and just noticed that when I practiced yoga, that I just felt differently and more creative and more functional, in challenging situations. So that's sort of what got me going. And then I've just built on it. And like now, I'm just so grateful that I am living a world life, and people around me in my similar age group, they have other health conditions that I don't. And I'm just so grateful for my journey. Just being inquisitive, that's what I call curious and playful. And I've just keeping that sense of growth and education and learning, being open.
Absolutely. And I quite like, when they say when the student is ready, the teacher, shows themselves. And you were receptive to that at a very younger age and you started learning. Now, I'm intrigued. You would have been speaking a totally different language to the people around you, which up until today, with the age that you have, you're speaking health, mindset, soul set, and heart set, a completely different language and showing a completely different picture to those that are of the same age range. Was that not a bit alienating at that time, going through that and also having to connect while still enjoying your childhood?
Yeah, look, I just really learned fairly quickly that when I came across some of the concepts of changing your mind, so mindset, developing my intuition and my emotional intelligence, I just went with some of the books that I read because I found books, and you were right on to it, Prosper, when you said, things show up. So I was given certain books and different things at the time. And how my world was when I read the information, I was like, this is miles apart. But I thought, you know what? I'm just going to give it a go. If this works, great. If it doesn't, move on. So I secretly, because I knew the external world, you were onto it, they wouldn't necessarily relate to where I was going. So I just thought if I just work on myself and, it's nothing to lose. So over time, I went from, going through a stage of my life, in 18 months, I had various things happen. And then I had tapped into a corporate career, which grew from there. And that was through mindset, changing my mind, my emotions, being open to opportunities, that weren't just, with jobs and things like that, that they could come up, from different ways, and just staying enthusiastic. And I just kept quiet about it. And just people would always, they looked at my life and they would go, Januta, you're lucky. Where really I did the inner work. So, which I've always worked on myself from the inside out, but also studied so that like now, the world has caught up to me. That's why I thought leader, and I've got enough experience and data from my own personal journey of working in the corporate market and working with people and myself, as well as there's so much evidence around now, which there wasn't years ago. This was more, it was more naive once upon a time, where, we've got our left, right brain, our whole person and our body, and it's all interconnected. And really every time we think, if you've got stress-related thoughts, you're going to release stress-related hormones, right? Which will either, if you do too much cortisol, you end up burning your system out, lowering your immune system. That's where a lot of depression, worry, stress comes into it. And people are fired on that model, where if you spend the time and you become educated around how to use your mind in a way to work for you, that's where life really changed. You go from not having enough time to have plenty of time, from having a, lack of creativity and just good, balanced, healthy energy. I know where I rarely get sick, and I can on occasion, but most times I would just be a bit tired at the end of the day because I'm present and managing my thoughts and emotions throughout the day, especially when unexpected things turn up. That's when there are challenging things. We haven't been taught how to manage the unexpected, have we? We're programmed on life's going to be a sugar-coated rainbow. And when you have that holiday, when you get married, when your career's this and that, but you're not taught about minute by minute, moment by moment, and managing challenges. So when you think of a culture that we've come from not knowing how to process trauma, or use our mind and direct our emotions in a functional way, it really impacts your health, your life, your relationships, and everything. But when you have a functional way of approaching your mindset, your emotions, your intuition, your physical health, and you apply healthy habits, there's more energy and creativity and agility, which, corporate cultures, it's pretty clear that there's a lot of burnout going on, right? So, and that research was amazing, but it just gives an idea of the cycle of where we're at, that wellness is really new to the workplace, and for it to be implemented in a way that it's going to work, I look at you, it's important to work on why are people unhappy. They go to work you go to work for a reason. Usually people want to have a career pathway, and if they're not being heard or valued, it actually impacts mental health and well-being, and it creates stress. So with even an individual being able to know how they feel, their emotions, know their mind, if you're creative, you can start a different conversation even as an individual with your team leader, and the same with, we're at a change cycle now where leaders need to be more equipped with emotional intelligence to understand what their staff are going through too. So it's a very different cycle with developing a positive culture. And that's why I'm grateful for where we're heading, that there's much more information around, and switched on leaders wanting to make the changes to create, creative environments. Like, for example, Dr. Carol Dweck, she's been around for a while. She's had growth mindset has been her concept. So there's either fixed, which is the stress, worry, fear, everyone keeps secretive to themselves, or the growth mindset where you work in teams, collaboration, and work in that coherent state. So that's powerful. I'm very much I've learned that we're engaging life through all of our senses. So it's not just the words people speak, we're all sensory. So, smelling what's going on, hearing, it could be even the time of the year when the seasons are changing, the light changes. So old memory of a trauma can start to come up, and people often even wonder, they go, well, I've done a lot of work in my life on myself, emotional work. Why am I feeling? Why are these old feelings coming up? And it's being aware. So awareness is your superpower. So awareness, being present, getting to know yourself from the inside out so you can reshape how you're responding, improve your energy levels, your health, and it all just cascades from there. I'm just very excited about, having the knowledge and applying it and experimenting when I was, at a point that it wasn't fashionable. And it's the good part is really now it is. And we know we need to do something important in our society to make a difference. And we can all do that when we manage our own health and emotions. And also within corporate, having a quality system that addresses a holistic approach. Because if you don't look after the stress, nothing's going to change. And that emotional well-being and the happiness levels of people.
Absolutely. I quite like that. And there's so much to unpack from that. But the one thing that I really like about that is you really leaned into taking ownership. And I think through your land experience, because as a person that was having to look after themselves, reading and learning and seeking all that information, which wasn't publicly available as opposed to now, you took ownership of that, and it shows in the way that you present yourself and what has emanated from that. Now, there's something that you mentioned, which is the importance of developing intuition and maybe using creative visualization sort of techniques. Now,
Yes.
how have these practices maybe played a role in your own personal and professional journey? Because when I looked at your website, it says good health is good business. So if you can't do well if you don't feel well, and some of these techniques is what has actually got you to be in the position you are in right now.
Absolutely. And that is the key to my well-being is, as I play with it, I've developed the 4 Qs. So really you've got your intellectual intelligence, your emotional intelligence, your physical intelligence, and also your intuitive. So the intuition, once you learn that skill, it's part of your toolkit, your natural state. You can actually just be guided to, we've all had this experience that when you're thinking of someone, that's like a telephone line, all of a sudden they'll ring you. And when you hone in, when you start to trust, someone keeps hopping into your mind, give them a call, because usually the timing, you might be just the right person that they need to have a chat with, or whether it's a client or a personal friend. Being intuitive, using your mind in a healthy way. Burnout, depression, anxiety, stress, and even the extreme suicide, which is very common, is a whole lot of thoughts that are used in a way that are dysfunctional. And it's a no blame thing, because when someone's in that situation, it means that's how their brain's been programmed to respond. And when you learn to bring in different processes, different approaches, and you practice, 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 and that's what I do. I visualize, I use my mind in a creative way, but I also, with like stillness meditation, that's actually getting quietening, your mind never stops rambling, but the way that you shift the attention when you're not a meditator, you close your eyes, you're in the back part of the brain. And through meditation, it's, have you done meditation, Prosper? Have you meditate? Are you a meditator?
Well, it is
Yeah.
part and parcel of my daily routine. I wouldn't be able to show up in this
Yeah.
instance if I wasn't connected to
So
my.
you know exactly what I'm sharing. So it's going within, preparing yourself for your day so that you're open and your brain's functioning in a way, when you're meditating, your front lobe focus, which is more memory, creativity, solutions orientated, they're the faculties that help you function in a coherent sort of manner. So practice, practice, practice. And then in the day, when, different things crop up, you can actually, stop whatever's going on. I've got the 3 steps: stop, acknowledge, accept, whether you like it or not, because not everything that comes is sugar-coated rainbow. And 3 is reshape it when you have the know-how, rather than just reacting towards getting into the stress. Oh my God, what am I going to do now? Doom and gloom, and we're not really, when there's big change events going on, people haven't naturally been taught about that space of change. And change creates fear for many, rather than when you've got a mindset that is able to move with change rapidly in a functional way, it creates a different sort of freedom in your life. And when if you imagine an organization where you've got a whole team, there's a big challenge that's cropped up, everyone's in their creative zone, they're solutions orientated, they brainstorm together, everybody has the opportunity to have their voice, and then they come up with quick solutions and move with the change rapidly, rather than it being a big stressful thing, becomes a functional conversation, and that's a good part of now. And there was some research, I loved it when I listened to Dr. Tali Sharot, who's trained as a psychiatrist, that's been around for a long time too. And in the 90s, she started off as a psychiatrist, but went into leadership training. And the area that I focus on too is when you're in a stressed environment, when I talked about the senses, and when you're releasing either your happy drugs, and that's in the coherent state, your endorphins, etc., that keeps you energized, or you're stressed and there's cortisol and then you're worrying and you burn out, that those hormones don't just stay within your head, within your body. We're releasing the pheromones through the body. So a stressed out CEO, like his EA, could end up, and people around, if they're wiring on the stress of the CEO, you know, they can end up putting on weight because stress, that's what happens with a lot of weight. It's actually too much cortisol in the body. And it makes it hard to shift, you know, especially around the belly and things. So if you've got a stressed, everyone gets in rhythm, and even having positive breathing, positive environment, there's a whole lot of toolkits that I can bring in. It's not just one thing. That's what I found. That's why I developed a toolkit. And because different things work at different times. But having this toolkit, so you've got your vision and you've got your, instead of fearing the future, you start to visualize like an elite athlete. It's been proven, hasn't it, that athletes that visualize their results, it's not just about the workout, the daily running, it's going within, creating a storyline from within and picturing their results ahead of time. And that's what I teach, really. It's like, you know, the human performance, people to be like corporate athletes, really, and, you know, manage their emotions, their thoughts, get to know their intuition. And that's what I love about my integrative mapping, the goal setting. I mean, the goal setting and integrative mapping system that I've developed. It works with left and right brains. So you're writing, but you're also mapping out 4 quadrants in symbol form. It's actually amazing with, you know, it works with the reptilian part of the brain, which is in the brain stem, and that's like our safety switch. And it can be very difficult for people to change because the body has that, you know, in our flight and fight, the saber-toothed tiger, we've developed fears. So people might be moving towards their success, but their body, see, the body becomes the mind. That's what holds them back because the memory is stored in the body. So working with this process addresses that part, that people build their blueprint through the way I facilitate it, and it's fun. And through the process, this activates creativity. It's like a meditation. You know, a lot of people, their blocks come up as I'm facilitating it because most people don't think they're creative. And I help them activate it. And just someone I've been coaching just throughout the holiday season has really fed back to me, that works at a very senior level, that they're just, after doing that goal setting and the integrative mapping, that their creativity is just, in simple moments, is really starting to kick in, which is it alleviates stress because it, you know, a change is just a thought away, right? So
absolutely.
But it takes time to learn skills. It's not just, and that's where I go, it's a no blame. If people are functioning in their car, right, we're all driving our vehicles around. If you've got flat tires, it's going to be a bumpy ride on that journey of life.
If you move at all.
Yeah, but if you've got really good motors tuned, you've got tires pumped up, when you're driving on, you know, that bumpy road, because there's always going to be challenges, it's a smoother way of just getting through, navigating life, and you just don't burn out through the stress. You might have moments, but then you can adjust it when you know how.
Absolutely. I quite like, obviously, how it all ties down to, you know, your personal upbringing, because you would have experienced all this, while you're doing your sports championships and, winning
Yeah.
at these events and things like that. And you've mentioned, that so many people have not been trained or have not been exposed to a
No.
situation where they literally need to, apply themselves because everything has just so been easy. I was actually looking up the statement, hard times create strong men create good times, and good times create weak men and things of that nature. And so much of that has just been because we now live in a soft environment. Everything has been figured out. Cars don't even kill that much these days because the SUVs are all super protected. So when you mentioned that whole saber-tooth flight or flight, people are not exposed to that anymore.
No, but
And
yeah.
there's no reason for them to really apply themselves. But nature thought of this a little bit 3 years ago, when we went through the pandemic. And I
Oh,
think that really put people out of their depth. Now, during that time, you walked through like you were doing a 100-meter relay because you actually transformed your business during that time. Can you maybe share more about this experience and the lessons that you learned during this period? Because so many people at that time were told they were non-essential, but you actually rose like a phoenix out of the ashes.
it was absolutely, at the time when I reflect back on 4 years ago, I've had a very solid business model in place where I was providing within the corporate market in buildings where some of the property management organisations would have me put a solution together for all the tenants in the building, or I'd work with individual clients like ANZ, your Telstras and NTT and other many companies over the years, local government, the whole bit. So there'd be ongoing programs day in, day out, but I also had developed all of my masterclass series of workshops, which is, I teach yoga, but I also teach with my PowerPoint presentation and deliver the evidence-based frameworks with no word of yoga, just strategies for people to have a functional mind, emotions, and intuition so they can function sitting at their desk, simple moments. And everything, when COVID hit, that ticked over. I do my workshops here and there, but my bread and butter of my business was 20 contractors, all just disappeared overnight. And like with all of us, with Zoom, I can remember doing a Zoom call in January and I hadn't even downloaded the app. So I've got an amazing daughter. And when we went, everything stopped. She said, Mum, you've got to go online. And she's so supportive. And I did the Zoom thing, and the family at home, they set up in their house. So we got it all rolling. And then she came online the first session. And lucky enough, I'd got a laptop because my desktop had in January, because when we went, into lockdown, if I didn't have this laptop, it wouldn't have happened. And then I got an old webcam from someone because you couldn't buy laptops where, remember that? It's going back to everything ran out because everyone was starting to work at home. So overnight, I did what I did. I went within and I worked on, because it was pretty challenging. And I thought, well, how am I going to get here? I've got to visualize my future before I get to it. So I had, I'd set up 7 classes online for yoga. So I had from 1,000 people I'd service each week. It went down to a consistent group of about 30. And some of them would do multiple classes. And these are all corporate students from a whole range of organisations that I was dealing with in this pool. And I just supported them throughout the day. And then most of my clients just disappeared, but out of the blue, I was invited to do webinars. So that was really helpful. And I would do, how to be functional and stay balanced in isolation, and, healthy eating, being food as medicine, and a whole range of different subjects. And then one company engaged me over 12 weeks just to do once a week and I would go through I put a whole program together, and that was about 300 people from all over the world tapping
Wow.
in. So I learned new skills, and just clients came out of the blue where I was doing the webinars. But also the amazing thing is my book, Wisdom Enlightened for the Corporate Hippie, because I did self-publishing, and it actually became live the day that we went into lockdown. And so I wasn't able to do a classic book launch, and people would say to me, when are you going to do your book launch? And I said, I would respond, when my book's in my hands, I'll know what I'm going to plan. But we didn't know what was ahead of us. So basically, it went online. I wasn't able to do any book launch. I could have gone into a real downer, but I went within, I focused, started some of the inner work of creating my future, the visualization, etc., energy work, so that I'm releasing all my happy hormones. And I had this day in particular where I was in the morning and I just went, I'm actually not going to go on my computer or take any calls until 11:30, because 12 o'clock took me half an hour to set up in those days for my online Zoom. I'm going to do an inner retreat, give myself time. And then I taught at lunchtime. I didn't even have time to check my emails. And then afterwards, I thought I'll go for a mindful walk, get out in nature, activate myself, and I'll just focus on gratefulness, gratefulness, gratefulness. So I wasn't focusing on stress. I was focusing on what I have got. And when I got back and I checked my emails, that was when I had a client that I'd actually done a live workshop for in January. They sourced me to do the 12-week program and paid me really well too, because my income had disappeared overnight too. And I've got my own business, so my business is my life and my passion. So I don't, you rely on it. And so I was just so grateful. And we rolled out that. And then through the media channel where we met each other, Prosper, there was a call out for a new TV show that was online. They were looking for people, and I was able to do my book launch to about 3 million people. How's that? So instead of like a small group of 100. So it turned out really interesting, and I've been sourced for public speaking, and I host events now, run the workshops, run my retreats. So I deliver a whole package of wellness and support age positivity and help people navigate through their life in a very positive way. Excuse me, my email,
Absolutely. That
because
is,
when I clicked on here, I didn't click out, so I
that's
do
all right.
apologize.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I very much like, that turnaround, because so many people, like we have concluded, they're just given these roles at work. Maybe some of them are leadership roles, and they haven't been challenged as much in order for them to think on their feet, or to actually really back themselves up in order for them to actually then support the people that they're working with. And from what you've told us, this is all lived experience on why you are the perfect person to be conducting wellness programs. And from what I've noticed, there's a lot of tools that so many people need to utilize. It's not just a one size fits all. You need to go in, look at the workshops, and then really modulate based on the individual and things of that nature. Now, if people are to get a hold of you, what would be the best way that people can actually get started, revamping their wellness programs, learning from you and your experiences?
They can find me on my website is executivewellbeing.net.au, and they can email me info@executivewellbeing.net.au as well. And my phone number 0412 183 379, and I'm on LinkedIn as well as Instagram. And look, the funny part is, through Instagram, I deliver wisdom, Plus I've connected with the community there. So that turned out left field, that my account there has grown and I've turned into an influencer, and I get paid for posts because I'm delivering wellness, as well as I've got my passion for fashion. And, in the Saturday the 2nd, I've hosted a few events, but I'm hosting one with a couple of fashion designers and an amazing PR lady, Susan Wright. It'll be at the Next Hotel, and it's about ageless fashion. And so I'm there supporting all of the ages, because no matter what age someone is, there's a challenge at each stage. So it's being educated through all the stages and balancing yourself through that process so that you can function well. And you, Prosper, said those exact words. We're all unique. I've added the word unique. So tailoring and a prescriptive approach is really important. And that goes with even diet and just how we think, the neurodiversity. There's people with PSD, there's so many things going on, ADHD. So everyone's functioning differently. And I think the main thing is to gain understanding towards others. And, that notion that we don't know what they're going through. So reactions, if they don't know how to manage their inner emotions and world, and they've got stuff going on at home, it can be challenging. And then they're at work and they're not being heard, seen, that it creates, it's not a harmonious approach. But having your toolkit, and that's why consulting, when I work with teams, with leaders, individual coaching, and then the workshops, I'm very grateful for results. And I like to work understand what's happening within an organisation so you can get your desired outcomes. And as I shared, that research is powerful because it just gives a benchmark of where we're at, and it's still early. We need, it's important to implement more wellness, more holistic, looking at people's roles as well as their health. Because really, just sitting at a chair, it's worse than smoking. If people are just sitting there all day, their posture is important, to have your awareness of your posture, how you're holding the stress in the body. It's the key at all stages.
Absolutely. I quite like that. Now, you presented to us such a comprehensive I'm gonna call this a master class in and of itself, because from where you started, how you navigated your own life, how you sort of dealt with the forces that were against you at that particular time, and you're still spearheading this whole wellness revolution, and just really looking at yourself, the way you dress, the way you present yourself. And for what you told me your age was, I'm gonna need you to send in your identity to our team just so we can verify this, because this in and of itself does not resemble the current age and mindset that everybody else has. Now, where do you see all of this going? What's the future of wellness, and also maybe what's the future of Januta?
Well, I'm going to continue what I'm doing, staying passionate, and just the same. I believe that we're all on that educational, the knowledge, information cycle. So it's really, the more people can be educated, and that's where I see myself, more speaking engagements out there passionately supporting wellness and cognitive wellness, and that's the thing. There's Dr. Sarah Lazar. She did research. I think I said that, mentioned earlier, that non-meditators, a 20-year-old and a meditator at 50, they have the same brain matter. They don't lose it. And that's what happens. And the front lobe, cognitive decline, creativity, when you can sustain your brain power, and so you stay healthy and vital, live well rather than live sick. And a lot of people are living sick because they haven't learned how the subtlety of living well. And that's where I'll keep teaching that, because that's what I aim to do. I'm passionate. That's my passion, purpose, and it keeps me well doing my work. And I'm just very grateful for being open, curious, and really activating my passion, purpose, and sharing the love. That's it. And just really important, you know, and I can get into so many levels, and that's where rolling it out, you know, it takes time to learn. I know we've done a bit of masterclass, but there's the techniques and the prescriptions, and very grateful for my journey. And it's been challenging, but having a solutions orientated mind and having my toolkit is really, you know, the key, and very, very grateful to share the love. So my passion is to continue and collaborate with others too that are like-minded, so we can make a positive difference. You know, like the environment. I can remember back in, I know, you know, we've been chatting for a while, in about 2007, my daughter, she's a cyber security guru these days and putting big solutions together. But at one point, she used to work with me and help me when I started my business, because she's a creative as well. And in that time, I was running some workshops, and I called them, I got it, cultivate your inner green. And I'd have a picture of a brain with trees and all that sort of thing. But because we're in the cycle of the intellect, and especially in corporate, you don't talk about feelings. You know, it's all about suck it up. You know, it's all intellectual. Now we're into the emotional intelligence, or as I play with it, the 4 Qs. But so I remember at the time, I just had to let go when the cycle wasn't ready for me, because I was still working with, you know, a lot of people anyway. There were people that were aware, but now because of education and with corporations bringing on board, you know, programs to educate people about the science behind wellness, I think that is very crucial, as well as dealing with how they feel about work and their job and career, how they can grow. And cultures, you know, rather than just having a, you know, corporate statement, that all of those conversations, the statement become conversations, so that it's benchmarked and monitored, and that, you know, the follow-up is really important with just surveying people about how they feel. And I've just had plenty of surveying and how people have felt after they're, you know, applying wellness.
Absolutely. And I can't thank you enough for bringing to light all these techniques and your life story and experience, because in and of itself, it weaves the common thread that all these problems that we're facing, mental illness, stress, worry, personal and work related, or maybe relationship problems that people are facing at work, can all be fixed by, you know, certain modalities and tools that are, as you say, prescribed. And I encourage people that are watching here right now to really, really sit down, first of all, with themselves or with their teams or with their business, and reach out to experts like Januta here, who have lived experience, not somebody who just went to a self-help session and walked through a couple of hot, you know, calls, and they now call themselves a coach. Januta has a lifetime of experience, and even Uluru tried to shake her off, but she wouldn't budge.
Yeah. That was amazing. Thinking back, that was wild when there was the earthquake on Uluru, but that was just amazing. And that was at a time when we didn't have the awareness, and climbed the rock. But I went up, you know, I went with a friend, we climbed the rock, and that day was just magnificent. And even the sunset as we drove leading up to that time the night before, it was a brilliant sunset. It was just incredible. And there'd been a bit of rain in the desert, and there were beautiful flowers, and the sky that day had the red rock and the red earth,
Yeah.
and the rock and the algas in the background and this bluey sky. Yeah. We went wandering onto the rock, and then I meditated and opened my eyes, and I know the sound of this there. I looked up and there was a blue sky and an eagle flying overhead, and I was like, wow, that was just really profound for me. And then I got up and went for a wander on top of the rock, and there were rock pools. And because there'd been rain, there was water and little fish. And I was squatting down looking into this rock pool with all the tiny fish being totally amazed. And then all of a sudden there was this sensation of, you know, the case of the rock was intact, but this feeling like it was shaking, you know, bang, bang on the inside. So I was like, wow, what's that? And what actually ended up happening, there was a 0.6 on the Richter scale earthquake when I was on top of Uluru. But I respect why, you know, our elders, why that rock is Uluru, it's a sacred rock. And I understand why it's not there to be climbed. And at the time, I just look back on, I didn't have that understanding, but I do have an incredible experience because I so value our Indigenous culture. They're just, it's amazing, beautiful.
Absolutely.
Very grateful for my earthquake on Uluru many years ago.
Absolutely. Well, with that, I mean, that very ground shaking experience, we might as well conclude this episode now. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Januta, for sharing your incredible journey and the insights with us today on the Online Prosperity Show. I mean, it's been a palm-pleasing pleasure having you, and we really wish you continued success in your endeavors throughout. So really appreciate you taking your time with me on the show today.
And thank you, Prosper. And I wish the same for you too. I wish you all the best. It's been an absolute delight to share this time with you. And thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. And to our viewers, thank you so much for tuning in. I know this is one of the long ones that we've had, but you did get a valuable insights, especially how wellness actually impacts the individual and also the business as a whole, right? Remember, you can actually connect with Januta there and explore her workshops, her retreats, and also her coaching services. Until next time, this is Prosper. We're signing off the Online Prosperity Show. Stay inspired, stay well, stay prosperous. Bye for now.